Dharma is for people who do not have this blind faith that death means oblivion, but actually open to the reality based upon an enormous amount of empirical evidence, that there just is no escape from reality. You can either be deluded or not deluded, but you can't become nothing. And that's the harsh truth. That's the tough truth. And that was the truth Gautama was facing already. There was so much empirical evidence when he left his palace of people achieving profound states of samadhi, exploring past lives, discovering the continuity of consciousness from lifetime to lifetime. It was a commonplace. This is not folklore. This was their cutting-edge contemplative science of that time. And India was the leader on the world. More than China, more than Greece, more than the Mayans, more than any other civilization. India is the mother of samadhi. And samadhi is the key to fathoming the nature of consciousness and discovering for yourself that as much as you might like the thought that death means simple termination, it's a pipe dream, and that there is no easy out of reality. In which case, the whole notion of path takes on staggering importance, enormous, almost inconceivable importance. Because if we can't simply say no thank you to reality and check out, if that's not really even an option, then the notion of path is maybe the most important notion that anybody has ever conceived of. And that is, if there is a continuity of consciousness, a preservation of consciousness, as there is of every other fundamental element of reality, space, time, matter, energy. You can do all kinds of things with space, time, matter, and energy. What you can't do is make them turn into nothing. And in a similar fashion, it's been discovered many, many years ago, and thousands upon thousands of times by individuals, that there is a preservation of consciousness. And we're here for good, or we're here for bad, but we are here. And there's no blowing off of reality. It's not an option. Now, you don't have to agree with me. I don't really mind either way. But that is the truth. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is the guiding light for this center, not Charlie Chaplin, you know, the place across the street. He was asked once, is it necessary to believe in reincarnation to achieve enlightenment? And he said, no, you need to know it. Belief is cheap. Realization is hard-earned. So shamatha. Shamatha is the handmaiden of Vipassana. Shamatha is the servant of wisdom. It is only the truth that will make us free. But it's not enough to flirt with the truth. Not enough to have fleeting glimpses, to have interesting experiences, even memorable experiences, even transformative experiences. All of those are good. I know that. I'm not, how do you say? I'm not ignorant entirely of the value of having meaningful experiences. But the Buddha's great innovation, I think, is probably an unprecedented innovation to the contemplative culture of India, and then eventually, not before very long, his contribution to contemplative heritage of Asia for the last 2,500 years, and for roughly the last century or even less than a century, his contribution to world culture, because really Buddhism has gone global only quite recently, is this enormous innovation of the union of shamatha and vipassana. The union of making the mind superbly serviceable, relaxed, stable, and clear through the cultivation of samadhi, single-pointed, high frequency, high acuity, and profoundly stable attention. And then fusing that serviceable mind with the investigation of reality so that whatever insight we gain, whatever insight we discover, we can immerse our minds in those discoveries, immerse our minds in the insight so the insight comes in and absolutely saturates, permeates the mind Just like light filling a room, there's no part of your mind that is not saturated by the inside, so that your delusions never recover. It's like the inside has gone so deep that the illusions have no way back in again. You've cut them off from the root. And really, this was the Buddhist discovery. That if you want to cut your mental afflictions from the root, if you want to dispel the obscurations of your mind so that they can never return, there really is only one solution. There's only one way. A phrase that gives me the creeps, but on occasion is useful. There's only one way. And that is by knowing reality as it is, but so preparing your mind that when you gain that realization, it totally saturates your mind. Now, does Buddhism have a monopoly on shamatha vipassana? No. When the Buddha first came along, the answer is probably yes. But Hinduism didn't stay stagnant for the last 2,500 years. The Vedanta tradition, the yoga tradition, and so forth. Christianity didn't even exist 2,500 years ago. But it has tremendous depth. You do find shamatha within the Christian tradition. I'll guarantee it. I can show you where. You find vipassana as well. It's there. And so I've had detailed discussions with His Holiness Dalai Lama. He is my root guru, the source of my teachings, my primary inspiration, about this topic. And he said, no, you definitely find shamatha vipassana in non-Buddhist traditions. And so his vision that he's very clearly articulated to me is to create one, and hopefully a whole network of centers that are designed to really focus on these core themes. Shamatha to make your mind serviceable, vipassana to explore the nature of reality from this first-person experiential perspective. But his vision, which is actually without parallel, I don't know anybody except for myself as his student who is really promoting this, and that is to bring together adepts from the great contemplative traditions of the world that have their own versions of shamatha vipassana. The Taoists, the Sufis, the Christians, the Hindus, and so on, and bring them together. Not to debate, not to convert each other, but in a spirit of spiritual fellowship, and seek out this common ground, see what we can learn from each other. But by going to the very core of our own traditions, in other words, his vision, my own vision, as simply as a student, is not, okay, now let's create a new religion. 10% Buddhism, 15% this, 20%, not that. I'm just 100% Buddhist. I found my path. I'm very happy on my path. And so are some of my dearest friends who are Christians. They're not looking to become 10% Buddhist or 40% Buddhist. They're 100% Christian. But we're definitely Dharma friends. Because there's something deeper than the distinctions from this tradition and that tradition. And shamatha vipassana really does strike a core. So there's no question, for those of you who studied Lamrim, all you have to do is go back and study your Lamrim again. And you see there Tsongkhapa, the great Tsongkhapa, said, this is the essence of all Buddhist meditation. This is the foundation, this is the core, shamatha vipassana. And out of that you'll see all the derivatives, stage of generation, completion, mahamudra, etc., 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 all flowing out of that, right? And so, why am I here? Why did I fly over the continent, fly over the Atlantic? Well, that got me off my cushion, got me out, is for those of you who are seeking a path. Seeking a path. In other words, really trying, if you are the follower of the Buddha, then really trying to follow in the Buddha's footsteps. And if there are people following other traditions, Christian or Hindu, whatever, you're utterly welcome here. If I can in any way enrich your practice as Christians, as Hindus, then I'm thoroughly delighted. My time is very well spent. Happy to be here. But as for those seeking a path. And this is the point, and that is there's a myriad of wonderful meditative practices out there. Buddhist and not Buddhist, Theravada, Zen, Gelugpa, Nyingmapa, etc., etc. There's so many good practices out there. Meaningful, deep, transformative, authentic. But I'll speak with confidence about the Buddhist tradition. And that is, these practices, whether it's Lamrim, whether it's cultivation of bodhicitta, or realization of emptiness, or Mahamudra, Dzogchen, stage of generation, stage of completion. It's a lot of jargon there, but some of you know what I'm referring to. None of those practices will bring about their intended result. None of those will be brought to their culmination if you haven't achieved shamatha. They don't become irreversible. And that's the very nature of the path, as opposed to simply practicing Dharma. A path means you're setting out from London to Cairo, from London to New York City, but you don't kind of hover over the mid-Atlantic and then go into a holding pattern. Or over the Mediterranean. I'm on my way to Cairo, but I actually haven't made any progress for the last 3 centuries, but I'm definitely a holding pattern. You know, that's what we get into, is a holding pattern. Have these wonderful practices, and we go into a shamatha, this retreat and that retreat and this retreat, and we do this practice, a 3-year retreat or what have you. And you say, but where's your path? Where is there something irreversible? Where there's something irreversible? Because that's why the Buddha left home, to achieve something irreversible. He didn't leave home to practice Dharma. He could have practiced Dharma at home. We all know that. He knew that. But how can you bring about irreversible transformation, purification, and liberation of your mind so that not only for this lifetime, but for all future lifetimes, all future existence, something has taken place that doesn't fall back? So shamatha by itself, as all authentic Buddhist teachers will tell you, shamatha by itself, no big deal. By the way, could I have some liquid here? Just straight water would be nice. Frankly, no big deal. So here we are for 6 days to practice something no big deal. Not the big deal. But then I'm not here to teach shamatha by itself, nor was the Buddha there to teach shamatha by itself. As Jujum Lingpa, and I'll refer to him later, one of the great 19th century Dzogchen masters, said, if you achieve shamatha, fully achieve shamatha, and that's all you achieve, because you can be complacent. There you are in your state of bliss, and your mind is luminous, and it's so quiet and serene, non-conceptual. And he goes, oh, I like this. In fact, why don't I just call this Mahamudra? You know, he said, if that's all you've achieved, you've not moved one hair's breadth on the path to enlightenment. You are the proverbial Beatles nowhere man, right? You're neither here nor there. You're just kind of little time out in samsara, you know? So no big deal. But that's not why I come. That's not why I flew across the Atlantic. But for those who are seeking a path and recognize shamatha just may play an indispensable role in the servant, as a servant of bodhicitta, servant of your renunciation, servant of your meditation on emptiness, of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, stage of generation and completion. For those seeking a path, then I thought, okay, that's good enough reason to come out of my meditation hut. Because there is something to be said for transmission, to actually receive instruction and not simply to listen to teachings in a recording or read a book. You know? A major part, I have to say in all candor, is that I think I feel actually boundless gratitude, inexpressible gratitude. To my own teachers, here's my primary teacher, but it's only the Dalai Lama and many others that I've trained with now for 44 years. And there is simply no way I can repay their kindness except by putting their teachings into practice, and part of my practice is seeking to share the teachings to the best of my ability. So that's why I'm here. That's my motivation, you know. And so whatever your motivation is, of all of those, that whole gradient, happy to be of service, but especially for those who are seeking a path and recognize the small but indispensable role in the bigger picture, the small but indispensable role that shamatha can play. It's for you especially that I have come out of retreat for a little while and go back into retreat.